Shinigami viewers. I keep trying to make this video, and I've been trying to do this for a couple weeks now. I don't know if I had to figure out the organization flow to make this into a good video. I think that was a big piece of it, but we're gonna try it again. I think I got the information that I needed to have here. Anyway, let's go ahead and start. So today's topic of the video is about taking old kits that you're not happy with and making them better. If you're like me, you have done this a couple years, and you'll reach a point in your hobby to where you're much better than you used to be. You've learned from your mistakes, and yet you have some older models that you did when you were, first started out, and you see now a lot of flaws that you didn't see then. And sometimes it's just like this feeling of like, hide the model in the corner because it's kind of embarrassing that you didn't do as good on it, which, be forgiving to yourself. You had to learn somewhere. But I don't think it's fair that those models get delegated to the corner of shame, if you will. And I think that I can prove here that there's actually a great thing you can do with them, and they serve a great purpose. And think of it like restoring an old car, if you will. You take this model that just really wasn't given the care that you feel it now deserves, and then you bring it up to your newer standard, if you will. So this is an example of that. This is one of the first kits I did. This is the Gyagya. It's not the kit that we're restoring, but it's one of the first kits that I did, but it's a good example of trying to improve upon myself. There's a lot of things that I can complain about this build that I did as good as I could then, but now I can do so much better. And you can see, for example, I tried to do some detail with some like Gundam markers, and I hate Gundam markers. Actually, I used straight Sharpies on some stuff too, and it's just, this is not up to my standard today. And I may do it with this model too. I may revamp it, but there's that issue with it. A little part separation. I had no idea how to hide seams back then. I really didn't know how to really do a good job of removing nubs. And I'm gonna try to zoom in here and see if the camera will zoom in. There's a visible nub. Yeah, there you go. That, man, we could take care of that now. Didn't know how to do then. And I've learned a lot about nub removal since I started removing nubs, because I kind of did it back then, but we're a lot better now. So anyway, the inspiration behind this was, again, my Palace Athene that I did was another model that I did very early, and I really am not happy with the state that it is in currently, so I feel like it deserves better. And where that inspiration came from was a blog post that I saw on this GundamKitsCollection.com. This person did a crazy job revamping this freaking Palace Athene, and let's just take a look at that together, because this is what inspired me. So this person's done a lot of stuff that I am just now getting to the point in my hobby to feel comfortable attempting to do. Where's my freaking mouse at? Oh, anyway, so take a look at this. This is actually the Palace Athene model that I have. It's just had a lot of things done to it. Instead of Gundam markers, this person probably airbrushed it. So, the part separation is really good, because the kit comes with stickers, but even back then I just really didn't love those stickers, so I tried to paint. I just didn't do as good a job as I can do now. But this person looks like they did the airbrushing to it. Looks like there's some scribing, which I'm going to show you as well. The one thing that they've done on this model that I don't feel like I'm ready for yet is called plot plate, which those ankles are much longer than the stock model is, so they've made the legs longer. I don't know that I necessarily want that on my Palace Athene, so I'm okay with not doing it this run. But it's probably a skill that I'm going to figure out down the road, because, no limits for me. I'm always going to try to learn everything, because so far it's been a great journey of learning these things. There's several things I'm going to do different than what this person did, aside from the leg lengthening. Like, for example, this is the other thing you want to do when you look at other stuff for inspiration, is ask yourself, like, what do you want in your final product? When I look at Palace Athene, as a design, it's one of my favorite designs. It's just so weird and cool. But the one thing that I just kind of didn't love about it was, like, these are 8 big ass missiles. They're like ship destroying missiles. So he's got long range covered. So in my opinion, why does he need another long gun? Like, I think this is just overkill as fuck. Especially when you look at the shield over here. He looks like he's based for melee. So like, why not do like a sword and a shield? So he's got his long distance covered with his missiles, but like, let's give him a melee weapon to go with his shield. That's my 2 cents, that's my opinion. As well as, they did a repaint on it too, which it looks like they've gone with, I believe, the Jagdogas colors, and I don't necessarily want to do that. It's cool, but it's not what I want out of this kit. I actually have a plan I'm going to show you that I want to do with my kit, which will actually be using the existing color scheme and just making it better. So let's go down and look through this video here. The other thing too that they've done that I will kind of be doing, but I'm probably doing differently, is look at that beam saber. It's always a weak point in these, especially these HG kits. The energy weapon effects just are boring. Like, they don't do much with them. They look fake. Like, this has some dimension. It looks like it's dripping, and they've done something to that blade to get that effect. And I have a trick of my own that I'm going to show you that I do for these things. But I'm going to give it a completely different beam weapon, because I'm going to do a little bit different here. Like, it's going to be keeping some things about the traditional Palace Athene, but there will be some customization. But not much, but you'll see. Anyway, there's more just really great pictures of this, and you can see it's such a cool design with such a cool flow, especially when you do the different like poses and attacks with it, because its feet, as you can see here, also like it kind of has like high heels, if you will, and but then like when it's like in attack mode, its feet turn into eagle claws, and that's pretty dope. And I definitely want to keep that mechanism, so mine is going to have that, because even the stock did that. But yeah, there's just more cool shots of it. Really cool looking kit. And so we go further down the line here, and you can see some scribe work here too, which you'll notice, because if you compare it to my parts, these lines are not on the traditional kit. That was just a lot of scribe work, and I'm doing a little bit of that. I don't know if I'm exactly going to do this, but I'm going to do something scribing to these things, because they are very non-lined on the stock kit. Let's go further down and look at some stuff. We've done some water slides. I'm going to make a determination after I do the paint whether I want to do slides. It's very likely I'll do slides, because I just like slides. I just want to see how I feel about how my customization has brought it up before I consider slides, because I don't want to overdo things. Metallic accents were done to these cables. This is something I have done for like a year or two now too. It's really just as simple for me as like taking the rubber hose or the plastic hose and spraying it with a metallic spray paint and then going over it with a protective varnish. So that's how I've done that, but this is a must for me for cables and stuff. I always want to metalize them, and they've also metalized some, like, I believe this is actually a beam weapon, a really funky beam weapon, but for pieces like that, rocket hoses and shit, I'm going to metalize them, because that's what I do. Please don't mind the noise of my messenger in the background there. Anyhow, looking on, I might actually do a little bit more scribing on this, because there's not a lot of scribing on this shield. I think I might want to scribe a little. We'll take a look and see, because this project's going to take a while, all this stuff I'm doing, because it's already taken me like 2 weeks. I've done a little bit of scribing on the feet already, which I meant to show you in the video, but I was just so disorganized and didn't know what I wanted to do the video. Well, unfortunately, well, you'll see it. You just won't see it being done, you know. But yeah, just more shots of the stuff. You'll also notice here, there's no line here. That's because they sealed the seams. I have done that on my kit as well. On all the parts now so far. See if there's, okay, here's the stock kit, and now you can start to see like what we're working with. Now here's what they're showing where they've done the customization on the feet, which we're not really going to touch on that. It looks like they may have used claw plate to lengthen those arms as well, so that's interesting. Here's the parts, and it looks like they are primed and scribed, because there are extra lines here that were not on the stock kit. I really like this blog post too, because it kind of broke that down. Even if there's not a lot of verbal information or words, there's pictures to show me what I needed to understand about what they did. And it looks like they may have done some extra little plot plate work here and there. And there's the model primed, and it's unpainted at this point. Here's the stock colors, and like I said, I'm going to kind of keep this color scheme. Jesus, what's my message? Would shut up. I want to keep this basic color scheme, just kind of change the colors as you will see. And then here it is painted, and you know, what you call it, it's painted, and it's done. So let's go back to the stuff here, and we're going to kind of show you, I'm going to give you kind of a rough breakdown. I'm not going to do straight up tutorials unless you ask me to do it, but like I said, this is kind of like what we started with the Palace Athene, but it's Gaga, so just pretend. Anyway, we move on to these pieces here, and so it's like this is an arm of a Leo. I'm just using it as an example, but like you can see where like the nubs there are pretty rough. You know, that's something you want to fix. And you see those seam lines right there, that I would hide, and I'll show you how I hide those. Like the nubs need to be removed. I would seal some seams and shit. So moving along here, and here's a nub. It is actually a removed nub. You can't really tell. How you can tell when you've done this, what I did was I took my files, like I use a razor, and I use these little foam pieces of sandpapery stuff, and I sand with that. Is I get it to where if I can rub the back of my nail on that bump, and there's no feel of a bump, because the white you're seeing there is distressed plastic, and we can deal with that if we choose to. Now, since we are painting, it's not that big a deal, but I'm still going to show you, because sometimes you may not want to paint if the colors are just nice. look at that, it's like pretty much gone. What I've done there, let me see if I can zoom in. It's not 100% gone because I'm not done with the process yet. But you can see that white is gone. And the reason that white is gone, I use this stuff here called Tamiya extra thin cement. The brand doesn't matter, but if you're using this extra thin cement for models, what it will actually do, one of the things it can do is it will melt that plastic where it's stressed and take it back to not whiten from the stress itself. And then at that point, you just kind of do this process over and over again. You're going to file it, and you kind of go through, like, what my process is I go from 400 grain, I go to 600 grain, 800 grain, 1,000 grain, and then I go to one of these nail polisher doodads, and I'll usually go step 1, and then step 2 is usually to the same sheen of plastic as the model. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 passes of cement, sand, but you'll get to where it's literally invisible. And so if you don't want to paint it, you can do that. As I said to you earlier, the other thing I like to do is metalize, like when they have like rockets and things like that, and when they're red in these older kits, especially these older kits, it looks like a toy gun with a red barrel. That sucks. So I've done what I said, and I sprayed some metallic accents here and varnished. This is the inside of the part, so you're not going to see this, so it doesn't matter. Over here, this is a model that I did where it's one of the first times I ever cemented parts, and I didn't do the best job cementing all the parts, but I can still show you some great examples. Please don't mind the dust, it's just a dusty model. There used to be a seam running in the middle of this, and I used cement to hide that. I was going to make you a thing to show you, but basically I feel like this can just be described. There is not thin cement, but regular cement. I'm going to grab some from my bin. Give me just a second, if I can find it. There's a different kind of cement, there it is, that I use for this. And what this is, here's how you hide those lines. This stuff right here is just regular cement. And maybe you could do it with the thin cement as well, but this is what I do. I'm just showing you what I do. I use this regular cement. What you do is you take this part, you tear it down, and you clean it up, right? Like you hide the nubs if you're gonna hide the nubs, but you smooth it down to where the nubs aren't physical. You tear it down, and what you do is you put the poly caps in place here inside of the part, like you're going to go ahead and put it back together again like you did when you assembled it the first time. But right before you squeeze the 2 pieces together, you're going to take the Tamiya cement, you're actually going to take the brush, and you're going to do a thing. Let's see if I can fucking open this bottle. Hold on, put the thumb down, try to open the bottle. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. I need like a thing that holds my camera on my shoulder or some shit. You take this brush and you don't go on top like this. You go like this on the part. You just glide it along the side. You do want to knock some off because you don't want a lot of this on there because it's literally melting plastic. But you knock a good excess of it off the brush, and you drag the brush kind of sideways on the edge of the part. You just want like a really thin layer of that cement on both sides of both parts. And then you're going to squeeze it together really tightly. And what it will do is it will make a bead, and it almost looks like it's welded, like metal welding. That's when you know you hit pay dirt, because what that is you're seeing the plastic on both sides have melted and are literally like welded together. That means that plastic is conjoined and is now one piece of plastic. After you let it cure for like 6 to 8 hours, and then afterwards you sand it, and then this is what you end up with. You end up with a part with no seam, and then you're just like, wow, I just did this amazing thing, because it's really dope and it's not that hard. Anyway, so here's the project in progress here. This is the actual Palace Athene. Sorry I don't have videos of it like before. It looked just pretty much like that Yaga with a bunch of shitty paint markers and stuff. I've been scribing these parts. I actually yesterday got some new chisels, because what I do with the scribing, and I'm just going to explain it briefly, is like sometimes you have an indentation in the model that you can work with if you want to scribe a line that's already there, which is what that is. So I didn't need to tape it. I freehanded some stuff on here, or like those little rib gills there. Those were already there for me to work with, so I could freehand it. And what you do is you take like the small blade. I use a .125, and the first couple passes, there's a 125 for you, so a tiny little dude. For a couple little passes, you don't put pressure, and the tip of the blade is like this. This is the sharp edge, so you don't do it like this. You see the curve? You do it on the flat side. But the first couple passes, you don't put pressure, because what you're literally doing is you're putting a very thin indentation. You're pressing a bit of a groove in the plastic that you probably won't even see, but it's there. For a couple passes, you do that with no pressure, and you just gently make sure you're walking along the same line. I had a groove to follow on this, or if you don't have a groove to follow, you make grooves. You make grooves, if you're not freehanding, with scribing tape, which is literally just Dymo tape. Now, if you have to do that for a part that doesn't have a line, like for example, on that foot right there. I did that line. What I had to do was, first thing you probably want to do, in my opinion, is you probably want to sand that part down and make it a little rough. Not super rough. Again, back to like the 400 grit, or even like the 600 or 800 grit, but you've got a little bit of a rougher surface because in my experience, that tape, it doesn't want to bite very well. So you're going to have to, like, in my opinion, sand it a little bit, and you still, like, you put it where you want it to be, and you squeeze the life out of that shit, because it still wants to come up. And once you feel like you've got it on there really firm, again, the same process where you're gently pulling it across the line to make that thin indentation. Just make sure you're going very smoothly and it's following that tape line. And after a while, you're starting to feel a little bit of a different feeling. You'll slowly put more and more pressure. After like past 5 or 6, you put a little bit of pressure and you'll feel this kind of feeling where you can actually hear a noise where it is actually slowly scraping, and you'll see a little bit of plastic dust come off of there. So you're going to do a couple more passes like that. Now you're actually carving a line in the plastic, and then you can put gently more and more pressure, but you want to get to a point where you have a clearly defined channel that you don't have to work a lot to keep your blade in that channel. Because if you don't do that and you start to go a little faster, a little harder, you're going to stray out, you're going to scratch your model, and then you have to, like, you know, do the trick with the thin cement like I showed you for hiding nubs to hide your scratches, and it's a pain in the ass. Where you have to like sand and then cement and polish, sand, cement, polish to hide the scratches. I had to do it a couple times on here. So I made that mistake too, but like I get this now. But yeah, you got to where you have an easy to follow channel, and you're gonna slowly put more pressure, but you're gonna wanna make sure that you have really quick thin passes of like this, like quick. And the reason you wanna do that is because you don't wanna be like this, because it's jerky, it's uneven. And like here was my practicing of scribing before I knew how to scribe. There's a lot of like jerkiness to these lines, and that's because I didn't have quick passes. Notice how there's not jerkiness on these lines? It's because these were quick passes. But yeah, you'll get to where you're going really quick. You've got to get a bit of a channel, but you're really just like you drop it in the channel and zzz, like that, like quick. Once you do with the 1.25, then you probably want to step up to a bigger line, and it's up to you how thick you want to make this channel, because I go from a 1.25 to a 0.2, and now I'm going to a way bigger jump, a 0.5. Now I've ordered a 0.4 or a 0.3 this morning because this is a bit of a jump, because as of right now what I have to do, because it doesn't want to automatically drop in a channel, because I have to kind of do it sideways to kind of pre-widen the groove before I continue that process straight on, because this groove is so thin and this blade is so thick it doesn't drop down on that line. So I have to like pre-widen it at an angle, and I shouldn't have to do that, so I'm getting an in-between. But this is, I think, I want my lines at 0.5. This is my happy spot for this. I'm not done with this piece, which is why some parts are narrower than others. But that's the way I want my scribe lines to be. So after we get done with the scribing, then the next part is the painting, which there's going to be a part 2 to this video because it's already a 17-minute video. Holy shit. And as I told you, I like the colors. I just want to make them better. So what we're going to do is we're going to prime this model with some prime, and we're going to use some base paints as I showed you in a previous video for these as described. And these are the colors that it's going to end up. Same colors, right? But just better. So for the yellow, we're going with the Turbo Dork Pucker. For the green, we're going for the Turbo Dork's new Appleseed. And for the blue, I'm going to change it a little bit with my favorite Turbo Dork of the blue is this Cool Ranch. But that's where we're going to end up. So there'll be an additional video on this as I continue on. So that is the Restoral project so far. I hope this video is concise and easy to understand, because it's taken me like 6 tries to get to this point, and I will keep you posted. Okay, so quick emergency edit. I lied to you. I forgot a piece. Man, I'm telling you, like, this is taking me so many edits to get my shit together on this video content-wise. I told you I was going to make it a beam weapon, and I wanted something not standard, and this is not standard. Now, refer back to my video about the kit bash box, because that's exactly what I did here. The standard beam saber would have been cool, but I thought I could do a lot cooler, and this is a leftover weapon from the real grade clear color Shizabi. So what we've done so far is, like, it comes with these green blades as is, right? And then there was like a thin green blade that goes in the middle that was it was cool, but it could have been cooler, right? So what I did, instead of using that piece, was this is from a 30-minute missions weapon expansion pack, the blue thing in the middle you see there. And it gives that weapon 3-dimensionality. Otherwise it would have been kind of a flat weapon. And I like those electric arcs, and I felt like it does good together. So I put the pieces in there. I had to sand it down to fit in that little hole that it goes in, because it's a funny hole for the middle blade. So it fits now. Probably have to still do some more adjustment. But the next thing I did was use Mod Podge Dimensional Magic to, as I explained earlier, add the texture to the blade. So if you look, let me see if I can zoom in and show you. You'll see that there are like little blobs that break up that kind of too perfect look to the energy spikes. gonna make it look more liquidy. I did the same thing to the electric arc in the middle as well. And what you do is use this stuff and you put tiny little dots of it on the blade. You don't touch it, and you gotta let this stuff sits like 9 hours. It takes a long time to cure, but I'll do a couple layers of it. I'll do a layer of dots on the blade, let it sit for I'll let it sit for about 4 or 5 hours. It's not all the way cured, but it's cured enough to add additional dots on top, and I'll do a couple layers that way, like layer of dots, 4 or 5 hours, layer of dots, 4 or 5 hours, layer of dots, let it sit overnight. And that step, let it sit 8-9 hours, because it needs to do that to get all the weight hardened, you know. So that's where we are here. Then the next step for this blade is going to be to paint the stuff. So the energy, I'm going to have it one color, not green and blue. I'll figure out what beam effect color I want, and I'll do that for all the pieces, so that will be a uniform color. It'll look like it belongs together. And then of course, we're not going to leave the handle the translucent red, so I'll find which of the 3 colors I've chosen for my paint scheme to do the handle, and I'll paint it that color so it matches the kit. So okay, this is the end of the video. This is the last little piece of it for today. So there will be a follow-up video. I'm gonna do a lot more scribing. I'll probably do the next video after I finish the main thick scribing and I'm ready to prime and paint. So I don't know when that'll be. I don't know, maybe a week, I really don't know, but I'll be back with a part 2 as soon as I am ready for part 2. Okay, this is the end for real. Goodbye.